Now, Labour is promising a total crackdown on knives on the streets of Britain if they win the election. Keir Starmer has accused the government of failing a generation after a record number of young people were killed last year using a knife or sharp object. Joining me on the programme now, the Shadow Attorney General Emily Thornberry. Emily, welcome to the programme. Excellent to have your company this afternoon. But what will Labour do to end the scourge of knife crime that hasn't been done so far? What remains in your arsenal of trying to fight this? What else have you got?
You know, if you wanted to go onto the internet now, you could buy one of these horrible zombie knives or a sword. You know, the government has said that they've cracked down on it, but the reality is they haven't. And what happens is that a lot of the social media platforms are hosting on their marketplaces companies that can sell directly. And we are not at all convinced that youngsters don't get hold of these things. And we need to make sure that when we say we're going to ban them, we actually do ban them. You know, the government is all very good at talking, but actually when it comes to doing something about it, they are not. And what we have said is that the executives of these online companies will be held criminally liable unless they stop this, unless they stop people being allowed to sell these kinds of knives, this kind of weaponry on their platforms. So that's a start, right? So the next thing we would do is we need to be able to bring together in hubs around the country. I think that we've talked today about 156 of them that would be hubs around the country where we would bring together experts, whether that is youth workers or law enforcement, mental health workers, into these various hubs up and down the country that would help would be part of crime reduction groups. And they would be working together, identifying which youngsters are at risk, which ones need to be focused on particularly, how you can make sure that they move away from some of the gangs and some of the bad influences that they're under and get them into other things instead. We need to be able to invest in that, and we're going to spend 100 million on that, creating these hubs and also just gathering together those, because at the moment it's a bit chaotic. So what we need to do is to move together the third sector, voluntary sector, as I say, all the different groups that have a role in trying to ensure that youngsters keep away from the youth justice system and put them into one place in order for them to work together.
But
we would have mental health workers in these schools.
But isn't the crucial factor here two things, really? One is that knives are easily available absolutely everywhere because everybody has them in every house, in every company, in every office. Everybody has a knife. So if you want to get hold of a knife and you mistakenly, as a young person, think it's to protect yourself, or you are intentionally wanting to cause trouble or create some kind of violent scene, you will get a knife. It may not be one of those zombie knives if you do manage to stop them being supplied, but bread knives, carving knives, there are knives all over the place. If anybody wants to get a knife, they will come by a knife so easily. That's one of the crucial problems here. But isn't the other problem sentencing for knife crime? That the sentence currently meted out, if any sentence is meted out, is pathetically small in relation to the danger that you can be causing if you take a knife with you when you go to school or if you walk on the street. Isn't the sentencing the issue rather than a supply of knives?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's both, Vanessa. I think we have to make sure that people really can't buy zombie knives and swords, etc., online, and we need to make sure that stops. But yes, of course, there is the more embedded, the more obvious problem, which is, of course, as a society, we have knives. Of course, we do. I have knives in my kitchen. You have knives in yours. But the question is, how do we stop youngsters carrying them? And I have to say, the area that I represent has been one where we have had terrible problems with youngsters being literally frightened and wanting to carry a knife in order to protect themselves, and we have to stop that. And we need to be able to work together in order to stop that. When you talk about sentencing, you're absolutely right. I mean, in the end, I think that it's our view, and surely it's right, that if you persistently, these really hardcore cases of people who carry knives should be sent to prison. But at the moment, we don't have any prison places. I mean, the government have got £2.7 billion earmarked to spend on prisons, and they still haven't actually built them. We need to make sure that we actually have those prison places so that proper decisions can be made. But at the moment, a third of people who persistently carry knives are not being given custodial sentences. And why is that? Because we don't have the places. We need to be able to approach this from the right angle, it seems to me.
Let me ask you, Emily, about the war of words at Prime Minister's questions today, when Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak each accuse the other of not really understanding culturally what people want, what people care about, what Britain's all about, what makes Britons tick. Do you think Keir Starmer has his finger on the pulse of what British people really care about?
So what happened at Prime Minister's questions was that Keir Starmer was asking the Prime Minister about childcare, because they had this big policy that they've been making a big hoo-ha about all this increase in free childcare places that are supposed to be available in April. And actually what they've done is that they haven't been able to tell the childcare providers how much money they're going to give them. So guess what? The childcare providers are saying, well, we don't want to commit to providing places if we don't know how much we're going to get for it. And so women trying to go back to work are not being able to find childcare places. So that's what Keir wanted to ask the Prime Minister about. He asked the question, he asked it a few times, and the Prime Minister starts waffling on about, I don't know what, kind of culture war this and culture war that. And in the end, what are culture wars? Culture wars are about distracting the British public from what is important are bread and butter issues that affect people's daily lives. And Keir was talking about this yesterday. Don't be distracted by people trying to, go to war with the National Trust or the Lifeboat Institutes, when really what we should be doing is concentrating on the cost of living and how it is we help ordinary people with their lives to make their lives a little bit easier.
Emily Thornberry, thank you very much for joining us.